Thank you very much. Jesus Christ. Oh, I love that. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go ahead and begin our program. Let me start by saying that we are truly honored tonight to have with us the First Lady of the great state of Texas. Please welcome again Laura Bush to the Indiana Republican Party and the Midwest Leadership Conference. I'm sure we're probably the first ones that thought of giving the First Lady of Texas yellow roses. What do you think? Yeah. For the purpose of an introduction, I have the honor of introducing to you a longtime personal friend, Mr. Mitch Daniels, Jr., Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Policy at Eli Lilly and Company. Prior to his promotion to his current post, Mitch was president of Lilly's North American pharmaceutical operations. Mitch's business career was preceded by 2 decades of service in Republican politics, 13 years chief of staff for Indianapolis Mayor and then United States Senator Dick Lugar, 3 years when President Reagan's senior White House staff heading the political and intergovernmental affairs offices. And throughout his political career, Mitch Daniels has truly been one of our party's finest strategies and developers of public policy. Mitch Daniels played a major role in helping this conference become a reality by serving as the national chairman for this event. Please welcome, for the purposes of an introduction, Mr. Mitch Daniels, Jr.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, one and all. Anybody think it'd be out of place to thank Mike McDaniel again for putting on a conference that surpassed everybody's expectations? Chris DePino, the national anthem was a treat. I've been out of touch, but by any chance, did the United States annex Afghanistan in the last 24 hours?
That's all right.
I want to thank Mike McDaniel for this opportunity and for accommodating my date for the evening. Megan Daniels, who's standing in for her mom, who's on duty with her Megan's three younger sisters. My favorite football coach, Bum Phillips, once said that he took his wife with him everywhere he went because she was too ugly to kiss goodbye. Sherry's very pretty, and I did kiss her goodbye, and delighted that y'all would invite Megan to be here in her place. I need to use this opportunity very briefly to thank those organizations who led the way in contributing so generously to make this great event possible, ultimately to accommodate 560 more people than Mike McDaniel told us at the outset would be the upper limit for this occasion. I do hope you'll take a moment to study the page in your program on which those sponsors are listed, beginning with our good friends and tonight's co-host, First Chicago NBD, represented by one of the first citizens of our city of Indianapolis, my friend Andy Payne. Andy, thank you very, very much. And extending from our friends at Ameritech, Apalco, BAA, Dow Elanco, Golden Rule, and Lincoln National, and NIPSCO, to do no injustice to all the others who donated so generously. Our most profound thanks. I even need to include Lily's friendly competitors at the Pfizer Corporation. I praise Pfizer with mixed feelings, you might imagine. Alan Simpson defined mixed feelings as those that come upon a father when his daughter returns from a date with a Gideon Bible under her arm. But my expression of interest to all our co-sponsors is most sincere, I hope you know. Ronald Reagan was fond of the story, and when Ronald Reagan was fond of a story, you heard it more than once, of the lions in the Colosseum, the Christians at the moment of their greatest peril. One brave Christian separated, marched resolutely to the nearest lion, whispered in his ear. All the lions thereupon withdrew and refused to eat, and the show was spoiled. And as the relieved Christians were led back to the beneath the stadium, one said, "That's the bravest thing I ever saw in my life. What in the world did you say?" He said, "It was easy. I told him there'd be speeches after the meal." Mike McDaniel has innovated at this conference speeches before the meal, and you're about to be treated to one right now. If there's been a dominant theme that I've heard during these 2 days, it has probably been how best to translate the victory of Republican ideas and idealism into even more victories by Republicans at the polls. The American public has embraced our ideals of limited government, of greater trust in the American people and in the governments closest to them, our respect for traditional values, our ethic of personal freedom and personal responsibility. And over we've discussed how best to communicate and win on these now prevalent values. Tonight, we're fortunate enough to be able to study a very intriguing model of how to achieve that goal. Maybe the best way to communicate Republican values, republicanism, is to cut government spending enough to make room for a $1 billion property tax cut, the largest in your state's history. Maybe the best way is to push through a Democratic legislature education reforms, restoring local control, creating charter schools, and championing further expansions of choice for parents and competition for better quality. To require work for welfare, to limit ludicrous lawsuits, and to achieve breakthroughs in privatization that bring down costs and improve service. Maybe the best communication strategy is courageous, effective action on the Republican principles now shared by a large majority of Americans. Stonewall Jackson once said, "One man with courage is a majority." Please help me welcome the author of the new Republican majority in the politically crucial state of Texas, Governor George W. Bush.
Good job. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Mike, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Sit down. Thank you very much. Thank you. Got to get to work. Mitch, thank you very much. Mike, thank you. Fellow Republicans from the Midwest, thanks for having a Texan to come and speak to you. Laura and I are excited to be here, and I'm just as excited as you are for the number of people who've shown up. I want you to know I'm a pretty straight talker. So right from the start, I'd like to get something off my chest. I know there's all kinds of speculation and all kinds of rumors about future politics. The national media, many of whom are here today, are having a field day, wondering out loud whether I'm going to follow my father's footsteps. I want to confront that matter head on tonight. I will not jump out of any airplanes. A lot of people think that the man I now call Sky King planned to make that jump. Nope, he was on a nonstop flight from Houston to LA, and the flight attendant served him broccoli. I'm really glad Laura came with me tonight. She's a fabulous First Lady for Texas and a great mother of our twin daughters. I know you'll understand and appreciate why we really appreciate you letting us leave early tonight, Mike. You see, our teenage twin daughters are home alone in the Texas governor's mansion. We strongly support the historical preservations of old structures. We got to get home to preserve the mansion. When I first met Laura, she was a rather shy public school librarian whose only version of giving a speech was to tell first, second, and third graders, shh. I actually promised her she'd never have to give a speech if she married me. Well, so much for political promises, because she speaks more than I do. She talks a lot about breast cancer awareness and literacy and the arts and children of Texas. She has become such a great speaker and is so beloved by people who get to know her that the same thing that happened to my old man has happened to me. Speaking about mother, I have learned that no matter how old you are or what your job is, you can never escape your mother. I learned that lesson in Fredericksburg, Texas. It was an unbelievable day. It was a day where 30,000 Texans and people from outside our state came to say thanks to the people who fought in the Pacific Theater in World War II. My dad was the marshal of the parade. My mother came. Laura and I were there. I was asked to give the opening remarks, and I was really looking forward to it because it was an opportunity to say thanks to the moms and dads of my parents' generation on behalf of the sons and daughters of my generation for the incredible freedom that we have in our country. And I got up to speak, and I said, Mr. President. There was a ripple of applause. And I said, Mother. And the place went wild. And I said, Mother, it is clear that people still love you in Texas. There was more applause, and I said, so do I. But you're still telling me what to do after 50 years. And honest to goodness, a guy in a big cowboy hat steps right out in the middle of Main Street, Fredericksburg, Texas, cups his hands and screams, and you better be listening to her too, boy. I do listen to her. When we first went to Austin, Texas, she said, you do what you think is right. Don't be sticking your finger up in the air to figure out which way the wind is blowing. And that's exactly the way I've been as governor of the state of Texas. I base my decisions on principle and on a conservative philosophy that most Texans share. And I want you to know I'm proud to be a Republican, just like I know you're proud to be a Republican as well. Ours is a party that stands for something, a conservative philosophy that is fair and decent and compassionate and full of hope for the future of our great country. We must proclaim our principles with pride and conviction, because I know and you know that when acted upon, our philosophy will make our country a better place for every American. Republicans must outline our hopes for America's future. We must make our case with reason and respect. We must inspire others to follow. In short, we must lead. And our leadership must be based upon principles and core convictions from which we will not waver. Republicans believe in fiscally sound government. American families balance their budget and pay their bills, and the federal government must do so as well. Living within our means means better living for the families of America. Interest payments on our national debt are now our nation's largest expenditure. What a waste of hard work and hard-earned dollars. The President has finally agreed to a budget that may eventually be balanced. Remember this, agreements can be broken. That's why in Texas we don't promise a balanced budget. Our Constitution requires it. It works in many states. It works in many states, and we owe it to the children of our country to make it work in America. This country needs a budget balanced amendment to the Constitution. Republicans believe that the government should do a few things and do them well, and have the courage to eliminate programs that do not work. History has shown that a government that tries to be all things to all people is destined to fail, leaving cynicism and anger in its wake. Our president is the classic president for a society that has come to believe everyone is entitled to something, because he will promise something to almost everyone. To paraphrase Will Rogers, this president never met a promise he wouldn't make. Government cannot solve all our problems. Republicans know the real solution to society's problems are to be found in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and within ourselves. As I said in my inaugural address more than 2 years ago, our guiding principles should be government if necessary, but not necessarily government. In Texas, we have a unique way of dealing with this problem. We limit the amount of time our legislature meets to 140 days out of every 2 years. Some in our state would like it even better if it were 2 days out of every 140 years. Our motto is, if government doesn't meet, it can't hurt you. Time sounds short, but I want you to know we get a lot done. Our first legislative session, we completely rewrote the education code to put local folks in charge of our schools. We reformed our welfare system to insist upon work. We completely changed our juvenile justice code to say to our children, we love you, but discipline and love go hand in hand. We reformed our tort laws. We passed a no new taxes budget with the lowest rate of growth in 50 years. And then we just met. And this time we expanded the menu of opportunity in education, giving parents and students much greater choice. We made it easier for faith-based groups to provide help for those who need it. We streamlined the adoption process in the state of Texas. We toughened our criminal justice laws. And on top of that, we gave the Texas taxpayers a $1 billion property tax cut, the largest cut in our state's history. Each time, we did all this in 140 days, and then enacted the best reform of all. We sent our legislators home to live under the laws they passed. Limited government works. And if it works in the second largest state in the United States, I'm convinced it's a reform well worth trying in Washington, D.C. Republicans know that results matter, that government must prioritize and perform. The biggest single state the biggest single thing a state does is educate our children. The role of the state is to set clear goals and to hold districts and schools accountable for achieving those goals. But neither the state nor, Mr. President, the federal government should try to chart the path to educational excellence. Those decisions belong to local folks, local teachers, local parents, not government employees in state capitals or in Washington, D.C. Republicans understand that if something's not working, we ought to fix it. That's why we don't fear competition and change. And that's why we welcome school charters and school choice. In my state, we discovered that approximately 30% of our school children, 30%, couldn't read and comprehend. That's why I set the clearest and most profound goal that I've set since I've been governor. By the way, 7 months before President Clinton echoed my words, that each and every child in our state of Texas should read at grade level by the 3rd grade and remain at appropriate grade level throughout his or her public school career. My point to our schools is, let's solve the problem. Stay focused on our goal. Use a curriculum that works. And phonics works. If it takes teaching reading all day long, do it until we succeed. Because I know when all our children read, the math and science scores will go up and the disciplinary problems will drop. Government ought to do a few things. Government ought to do a few things and do it well. Republicans believe in local control of our counties and cities. We know government closest to the people is the most efficient government. The last 30 years have clearly shown that concentrating power in Washington, D.C. has led to a one-size-fits-all mentality that doesn't fit at all. Federal overreaching doesn't solve problems. It creates them. Take welfare. The federal approach has failed, trapping too many Americans in a vicious cycle of dependency and despair. In the past, states were rewarded on the basis of how efficiently they signed people up on welfare. Republicans are doing something differently. We're saying that the best welfare program, the most compassionate welfare program, is not a handout but help. Help getting a job, help finding daycare, help with education and training. Our new attitude is not, where should we send the check, but what can we do to help you get a job and win your independence? Republican governors are leading the way. The Midwestern Republican governors are doing a fantastic job. In our state, we're trying to be bold as well. We spend more money determining who's eligible for all the welfare programs than we give out in cash grants to needy families. And so, I decided to do something about it. I decided to harness the technology and innovation of the private sector, to put the system up for bid to see if we can do it more compassionately and more efficiently. But the President of the United States, the man who had promised freedom and flexibility, said no after he met in the White House with the leaders of the AFL-CIO. It's frustrating that the AFL-CIO is setting welfare waiver policy for the United States. And it's especially frustrating for those who need help. Because you see, I envision a one-stop shop for help center where someone who needs a hand is given a voucher for training or daycare or services, a voucher redeemable at that person's choice of a community center or a church or a synagogue or a government agency. You see, our goal is to help welfare recipients become responsible citizens and encourage them to make choices, not to be the passive recipient of a handout. Our goal is to replace dependency with dignity. The best welfare plan is local. The most effective and compassionate welfare system is one that restores the human link between recipient and giver, that replaces a faceless bureaucracy with the helping hand of a neighbor. Government does not have a monopoly on compassion, and we must do more to encourage people of faith, people following a religious imperative to love their neighbors, to be an integral part of our nation's efforts. There's no better place to change a life than a place full of faith, a place full of love, and a place full of hope. Our new laws in Texas take advantage of charitable choice introduced by Senator Dan Coates and say to faith-based groups, you can help change your neighbors' lives without losing your soul and without fear of the government intruding into your mission. Whether we're talking about welfare or education or any other aspect of government, Republicans believe in the 10th Amendment. Republicans know that the people who care most about the state of Indiana are Indianans. And I know that Texans can run Texas without the federal government telling us what to do. Republicans know that government does not create prosperity. Producers and entrepreneurs do. The role of government is to create an environment that attracts capital, an environment where people are willing to take risks to create jobs. That's why Republicans support tort reform. That's why Republicans support the cut in the capital gains tax. That's why we know regulatory policy must be based upon sound science, not some social fad. And that's why we believe in free and fair trade. And Republicans know that private property is the backbone of capitalism, and all public policy must respect private property. And finally, Republicans believe in the worth of the individual and in the strength of the family. Strong families make strong communities. Strong families nurture and love. In our families, we learn the values essential to make us the good citizens of the world. All public policy should work to strengthen families and keep them strong. One of my main responsibilities as governor, and I believe one of the responsibilities as Republicans, is to set the tone for change. Whether that change involves schools or the juvenile justice system, or whether that change involves solving the number one problem facing America, the culture of our time. A culture that says, if it feels good, do it. And if you have a problem, blame somebody else. The warning signs of today's culture are everywhere. An American child is abused or neglected every 10 seconds, is born to an unmarried mother every 24 seconds, is born into poverty every 34 seconds, is born to a teenage mother every minute, is arrested for a violent crime every 5 minutes. Truth of the matter is, our culture must change if your children and our little girls are to grow up in a peaceful and decent society. Government can be a part of the solution with laws and policies that send clear signals that each and every one of us is responsible for our own behavior. Strong laws help, but all the laws in the world cannot make people love one another. Government can hand out money, but it cannot put hope in our hearts or a sense of purpose in our lives. It cannot bring us peace of mind or joy. It cannot fill the spiritual well from which we draw strength every day. Only faith can do that. I'm convinced that to fundamentally and permanently change our culture, we must have a renewal of spirit in our country, a return to bedrock values that have stood the test of time. Not the values of one religion over another, but values like love your neighbor like you'd like to be loved yourself. Give an honest day's work for an honest day's wages. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. Respect others. Respect their opinions. And always remember, it's you who's responsible for what you do. I know I've painted a pretty tough picture about our culture, and indeed we face many challenges. But I want you to know I'm an incurable optimist. I have seen a culture change once in my lifetime, so I know it can change again. Not backwards, but forwards to a new day, which says to each and every American, you're responsible. It's you who's responsible for the children you bring into this world. It's you who's responsible for loving your neighbor. And it's you who's responsible for the health of the community in which you live. From the pulpits of our churches to the bully pulpits of our government, we must all sound the call to personal responsibility. We must all be leaders in our own way by being good citizens, good neighbors, and good parents, by promoting good values in our homes and not being ashamed to promote them in the public arena. There's much to do, and I know this great nation will succeed. I know we'll create a more decent and compassionate society. For our country's most glorious moments have come in times when the world seemed uncertain and adrift. And we're not alone. Guided by the fixed stars of our faith and our national soul, I know we'll rise to the challenge and create a better day for our children, for our country, and for America's future. Thank you all for having me, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Terrific.
Thank you.
We got a quick presentation. Don't lose that seat. That's something I'm going to give you here in a second.
Thank you all. You're a very kind audience. Thank you. You played like you were listening. Thank you very much. Thank you, officer. Thank you all. Okay, y'all sit down, please.
Governor, thank you. I know the demands on your schedule are tremendous, and it was truly a delight for us to have you join us for the Midwest Leadership Conference. It's been the tradition at this conference that we give many of our party leaders a symbol to represent not only the Midwest, but a symbol of victory, and we hope to share many victories with you for many years to come. So please accept this as our way of saying thank you for joining us at the Midwest Leadership Conference.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
You're a good man.
Thank you very
Come down
much.
and see me sometime.
I will. I'd love to.
Youngster, we'll see you.
Go Rangers.
Thanks.
Our live coverage of the Midwest Republican Leadership Conference in Indianapolis continues tomorrow morning with Oklahoma Congressman J.C. Watts at 9:50 Eastern, and former Republican vice presidential candidate Jack Kemp